Welcome to Southern Living Presents. I'm Frances Schultz, and we're at Biltmore Estate in Asheville, North Carolina. Today, we'll visit a historic house right here in North Carolina that you've got to see to believe. And we'll get the skinny on breakfast breads. But first, look at the Hunley, a wartime submarine that's become a piece of South Carolina history.
This is the Hunley. She has a lot of claims to fame, but her #1 claim to fame is she is the first submarine to ever sink a ship of war.
The ship of war the Hunley sank was called the Housatonic. It was one of the Union's largest ships during the Civil War. The story of the attack was told in the TNT original movie, The Hunley.
The submarine's designed to deliver a charge. Basically, they've mounted a bomb on the end of a long pole, the spar we call it. This they would ram into the side of the ship. The barb would hold it against the side, and as they backed away, it would leave the mine or the bomb attached to the side of the ship, connected only by a rope lanyard. When they were a safe distance away, the line went taut, pulled the pin in the bomb just like a grenade, boom, and put the Housatonic on the bottom of the ocean in under 7 minutes. But from that point on, no one has any idea what happened to the Hunley.
In 1864, the same day it downed the Housatonic, the Hunley mysteriously sank off the coast of Charleston, South Carolina. It wasn't until 137 years later that the mystery of what happened to her would start to unravel.
Author Clive Cussler started looking for the Hunley back in 1980. I mean, it was his crowning jewel. This was the object he wanted to find. They didn't have success in 1980. He returned in 1981, again here to Charleston. He returned again in 1994 to look at some of the targets they identified.
In 1995, after 15 years of searching, Cussler and his team of archaeologists found the vessel buried in the ocean floor.
I was the first one down. I got down and the whole bottom was completely covered in sand. Nothing was sticking up. So I came back up and got a metal probe. I was kind of feeling the surface and it was smooth. It wasn't barnacle covered. There weren't rivets all over the outside. And I thought, it's another piece of dredge pipe. It's another piece of modern junk. And so I went up to change up my tank and I said, I don't know what it is, but it's not the Hunley. I have eaten those words to this day. The excavation of the Hunley itself, since it was buried so far beneath the sand, took right at 3 months. Oceaneering International developed a technique using a lifting truss where we literally set a frame over the outside of the submarine and while the submarine's supported in the sand, excavate underneath the submarine, starting in the bow and working our way aft and placing slings underneath this whole submarine. On the inside of these slings, we had nylon bags which we injected with foam and it expanded and perfectly form-fit the bottom of the submarine. When we were finished and we had the entire submarine in the new cradle in the exact orientation, the exact position that she was lying in the sand, we simply picked up the lifting truss and set it on the barge. And it actually went just like that. I mean, it went just like clockwork.
Today, the Hunley can be seen at the Warren Lash Conservation Center in Charleston, where visitors can learn about the conservation process. The long-term goal is to move the Hunley to a museum where it will be permanently conserved.
Every time you raise an artifact from a shipwreck, this artifact is going to disappear or degrade very quickly, unless you keep it in water. If you let this submarine oxidize at the reach of the oxygen for too long, it's going to start to crumble, unless you treat it. And the goal is to treat this submarine so you can store it, you know. So this is why when the Hunley was raised, we had to find a way to keep it in water all the time.
It's such a unique project in that it's manageable. In the case of the Hunley, we have literally a sealed time capsule.
We spent years excavating the artifacts and removing the crew members, and now we're getting to the time where we are starting to conserve the vessel itself. And the vessel has, I mean, people say it's a small submarine, but gosh, it's a big thing to conserve. Removing a couple of top plates so we could enter the submarine. It was completely filled with sediment all the way to the top. And this is actually what helped to preserve, I would say, the crime scene. And what we're doing right now is preparing the submarine for the final treatment. So we are removing the bench. The bench was removed. I mean, the bench is made of 3 boards. And 2 boards were already removed. And we are working, Philip is actually working right now on the third one.
Do you really believe that this was added?
Yes.
Yeah? Don't think that this is the original bench?
No, I don't.
It was cut like, you know, it was against. It was cut just to be.
Yeah,
nice.
somebody did fair. It's
Right
right
in there,
didn't they?
nicely
Yeah.
cut here.
There is the philosophy behind the Hunley project is to be able to understand as much as we can from the Hunley itself and the people and try to put together a realistic picture that we are lacking at this time. If you let something dry, it disappears. It could be leather, could be wood, even iron. I mean, the paint is incredible because who could think that you could find paint on an artifact that has been underwater so many years? And the wonderful thing is that normally wood doesn't survive very well on a shipwreck because the wood borers, there are worms that are going to eat the wood, eat it all. In that case, I mean, the wood borers did not venture in the submarine. They were not able to get there. They didn't want to. I mean, for some reasons, the wood is still there. And if you look at that, you've got the original paint here. It's going to be documented by the archaeologists. Then the archaeologists are going to give the bench, this part, this artifact, back to us. We're going to put a diagnostic on the bench, try to see what we need to do, have someone to work on the bench, clean the bench, do the same process, and then freeze dry it. We try to really understand the corrosion mechanisms and try to find a way to stabilize those artifacts more efficiently. The impact on the conservation field is going to be huge. And this is what we're trying to do. Our contribution is to use the Hunley as a very good reason to put some research and look into what has been done in the past and try to make it work better for the future.
And this project not only is from an archaeological standpoint just an absolute monumental project, but there again from a cultural standpoint, looking at where it fits a piece back into history, it's passionate.
There's nothing easy on this project. Everything is difficult. Working in the submarine to excavate those artifacts, doing all the recording, all the archaeological work is extremely tedious and difficult. And the conservators are also dealing with horrible tasks, like pulling totally corroded canteen off the iron hull, and everything is fused together like a rock. I mean, those things are impossible. People have worked on concrete shoes totally fused to the hull. I mean, this is not easy.
We collect all of this information more and more, and I believe when we get to that end, we actually will stand a better chance of telling the story of what happened than had they dragged the submarine up the day after the event. With the technology that we're employing, all of the almost crime scene type analysis on the submarine, I really think we stand a good chance of answering that mystery.